So what is this? Winter, spring, or summer? I know the date on the calendar says February the 3rd, but if we look across Texas, you can argue and say this looks like spring, but you could also argue and say it looks like summer. You know, February sometimes can bring really warm weather as well as March. It's usually in very short spurts here, but these numbers, those are records. Look at some of those areas back off to the west there. Lubbock at 91 degrees, even down into the deep South Texas, some low 90s there. Wichita Falls breaking a record today of 88. The former record was, I think, 81 or 82 set back in the 1960s. There is a little weak front on the way, and this little weak front is going to drop down to the south. Now, remember, if you were watching me last week, we talked about battle zone weather because we got the warm air to the south and cold air up to the north, and they're both trying to take over, and eventually one will win out here. And I believe at least for now, the short-term pattern anyway, the warm is most likely going to win out. This little weak front drops into North Texas on Tuesday here. North of it, it's going to be a little cooler. South of it, it stays warm. So we're talking about North Texas, Oklahoma. Temperatures probably drop back down to the 60s tomorrow, but if you're down in Central or South Texas, Austin, San Antonio, those areas, probably still in the 80s again tomorrow. Whatever drop in temperatures Oklahoma and Texas sees will not last long because they're already back to breezy and warm again for Wednesday. Storm track north of us here, another cold front. Now there's another front the late Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to try to drop down to the south, and if it can get further south and drop down into Texas, then temperatures might be a little cooler than what I'm forecasting for now. But at least for now, we're going to go with mostly warm, mostly breezy throughout much of this week. And then again to the weekend, whatever drop we might see Thursday, don't last long because, boom, we're right back up again by Friday and into Saturday. But there might be some changes on the horizon. First of all, I'm going to look at temperatures for February 4th, 5th time. By the way, tomorrow, February the 4th, my mom's birthday. Happy birthday to her. So as you can see here, we got these temperatures that are a little bit cool. I know it says February the 5th here, but this is going to be February 4th, and it shows those cooler temperatures down to the south here. Now, as we head towards the rest of the week, look at the warm weather. This is that next front I was talking about here on Thursday. Trying to drop down into Texas, and it might do so, but for now, we're going to keep temperatures in the 70s. Whatever drop it manages to do would not last long. The really cold stuff, though, remains north here, across the middle part and the upper part of the country. The pattern, again, doesn't quite yet favor a big blast of cold air in the U.S. Now, it's frigid back across western parts of Canada and back into Siberia, those areas. There's your polar vortex. Watch the spin around it. You can see the large-scale spin across Canada. Now, what I want you to watch and pay attention to is, this is the weekend. And notice how this thing is kind of a bit more stretched out. You got a little piece of energy, a little dip right there, and another dip here over the western part of the country. Now, as we get into next week, we're talking about the period, maybe around or before Valentine's Day here. You're going to see the polar vortex, or at least a piece of energy, really break off. You see how it's stretched out west to east? That is usually an indication that cold air is going to pour south into the United States here. Also, look at this. You see how the jet stream, how there's a little push upwards here? That shows warmer air trying to push into Alaska. So you get that cross-polar flow again, and here we go. Cold air could be on the horizon here with this type of a pattern. That polar vortex trying to throw some cold air down to the south, and you've also got pieces of energy over the southwestern part of the country with southwest flow out ahead of it. This pattern could favor winter weather. I'm not forecasting that yet, but with cold air to the north and warm air to the south in that battle zone area, it could be some snow and ice at some point. So most of this week, this is going to be the week of the early parts of February, of course today being February the 3rd. So the week of February 3rd or 4th, we're going to keep the warmer air for the most part intact with the colder air locked off to the north here. But as we head into, as I was showing you a minute ago, later on in this upcoming weekend, early next week especially here, you get some of that colder air trying to move in. I don't think, at least initially, we see a big dump of cold air, at least initially. But again, there's going to be a pretty good dump, I think, behind this here. For now, at least into the early parts of the weekend, and maybe even the latter part of the weekend, coldest air north, warmer air across the southeastern part of the country, and I think some of this really cold stuff is going to pour southward as we head into the middle of next week here. And again, that's around Valentine's Day. So if you take a look here at temperatures across the globe, we're looking up north. There's your cold air associated with your Arctic regions and the polar vortex up here. And then you got the warmer air with the brighter colors down to the south. We're going to put this into motion here. You can see the warm stuff covering all of the south. It feels like spring down here. I mean, it's the trees are going to start budding out if it stays warm like this for a long time. Let's hope not, because we're not done with winter yet. Let's keep this thing in motion here. You can see the ups and downs, that battle I was talking about. And then here we are this upcoming Sunday. And then there it is. You can see some colder air trying to drop south. Warm air over here, bitterly cold air up here. And you're going to continue to see some of this cold air drop down to the south. And again, when you get this type of a weather pattern here, that could favor winter weather at some point in time. But it looks like around or prior to Valentine's Day, a pretty good cold outbreak could be on the horizon. But in the meantime, it's going to be very nice. Now, as far as winter weather, it's way, way too soon to be forecasting that. But I know you want to know, so we're going to show you what the models would indicate this type of a pattern. I still think the pattern would be favorable for winter weather maybe next week if these patterns continue to hold. Of course, this is in voodoo land. This is way, way out there. And this is definitely not a forecast. This is just for social media purposes and just something I'm just showing you here, what could happen, okay? So we're going into the weekend, nothing major here. And then as you get in that colder weather pattern next week, chance that you could see some precipitation with some storm systems down here across the central and southern part of the country. And that eventually could lead to some wintry precipitation. Again, I'm not forecasting that yet, but it certainly is possible across the central and maybe south central part of the country, maybe even over into the Tennessee River Valley. Of course, that's a long way off, better than a week. Plenty of time to watch that. Bottom line is, it's going to be mild this week, and then I think next week it is going to turn colder, if not a lot colder. Thanks for watching my video forecast here. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow me on my social media pages. Everybody, have a great week.